The particular dealer here in Manchester I spoke to has actually lost £300,000. So we all know where the watch market has been over the last few months, all over the place pretty much. After 3.5 months of this dip where prices have gone from inflation to deflation, what does the data suggest? Are prices actually starting to flatline? Are things getting better? If you're looking to pull the trigger now, which particular pieces are the safest bet and which ones do you avoid like the plague? I'm Watch Investor Vinny and welcome back to the channel. Now I want to start off with saying that things generally have improved across the board. Dealers like myself are making sales at the right prices and buyers are coming back. That's probably because savvy investors may be buying the dip as we've been seeing everywhere, or also because that coveted piece that they've been after for several months and couldn't justify at the inflated prices are now at a price that is reasonable. Things are getting better, and that is for sure. Now, in a previous video I highlighted the rose gold Datejust 41 as a bit of an outlier, defying the market dip and actually going up in value. Now this is a watch which is an iconic all-time Rolex classic with the Jubilee bracelet, the fluted bezel and that oyster case. It really is timeless. By design, of course, excuse the pun. Perhaps the most prevalent piece of advice going around to buyers right now is to buy the classics. Stick with the steel sports models. So the question is for me, are those all-time classics really the least volatile in the watch market at the moment? And what is the data suggesting for that? Now we've had 3 months have passed since the market took a dip, and we've got that 3 months worth of data available to us to really delve deep into what exactly has been happening. Now I've done some basic analysis using our own sales data and results to help us along the way, and data available on Chrono24 as a market proxy. Combining all of that, we've plotted the movement of values of the top 5 most popular Rolex steel models and done a comparison against 5 popular Rolex gold pieces. All of these models that we are talking about here are for pre-owned 2019 examples. If we start off with the Daytona 116500 LM, that's the Panda dial, we can see that in February prices sat at around £38,000. When the decline actually began in March, the prices didn't move that much, and by the beginning of June prices had decreased to £34,000. So over that period of time, that is an average percentage decrease of 10.5%. For the Rolex Submariner Hulk, by contrast, prices in February were at £24,000. Now that actually experienced a slight increase in March time to £25,000, and now June the 1st we sit at £22,000. This of course is a discontinued model, so it's not in current production, and therefore we believe, and I always say in Beat the Waitlist, the best investments probably are the ones that are discontinued and then that are no longer in production, so therefore supply is limited. That's probably a reason why this hasn't decreased in value quite as much as the Panda, and we've seen a percentage decrease of 8.3% in value since February. The Pepsi, that was in February sitting at around £23,800, and now at June the 1st we're at £22,000 in the market. That's only 7.5% since February. This is an extremely popular model, it is an all-time classic, and of course it's the one that everybody wants. The Submariner, so this is the standard black and the discontinued reference 116610LN. In February that was sitting at £13,800, and since then we've only seen a £1,000 decrease in value, which is just over 7%. The Datejust Wimbledon 41 with Jubilee bracelet and fluted bezel is one that's actually bucked the trend. In February we saw a value of 11,700 that increased through March to 12,200 and June where the value lies at 12,500. So that is actually an increase in value. That's great news because it shows that not all Rolex pieces are going down in value. So it's showing that they just are very strong at the moment. Actually, it's maybe the ones that the more savvier investors who are being more risk averse with how they invest their money are going for the Datejust pieces. What does that mean overall then for the top 5 popular steel models? We've got an average decrease in value of only 5.3%. So let's weigh that up then with the top 5 popular solid gold Rolex pieces, and starting with the big one, the Rolex Day-Date with olive dial in solid rose gold. Of course, we saw several months of this piece going through the roof. It was a trendy piece, so it experienced quite a steep spike over a very short time. And in February that was a model that sat at £73,000 in value. Straight away that saw a decline through March to 71,000, by April 68, and now June the 1st it's a watch which is only worth £60,000, so a £13,000 loss or decrease in market value. The Rolex GMT Master 2 full rose gold root beer. Now that was a piece that sat at £50,500 in February. It passed that £50,000 mark and now it's sitting at £44,000. Overall, since February the 1st, we've seen a 12.8% dip in value of that one, so not as bad as the olive. So the Yachtmaster 40 Rose Oyster Flex was experiencing an all-time high value of £30,000 in February, and here in June that piece lies at £27,000 asking price and is actually selling for on the secondary market. So overall, since February the 1st, that is a decrease of 10% in value. At the beginning of the year, it had a spike through January and February in value, but it hasn't fallen yet to the initial price it was sitting at before that spike, so around December time. The Daytona Paul Newman on an Oyster Flex. Back in February this was also at an all-time high of £46,500, which was colossal. I remember thinking at the time for an Oyster Flex piece actually going above and beyond what we were seeing the value of a solid gold Daytona. Madness really at £46,500. It is a piece that I expected to tumble in value, and now only sort of in June are we seeing a dip in value for that one to £44,000. So it hasn't yet come down to what the value that I thought it would do over that time, because it was sitting at only sort of at 36, 37 at best at the turn of the year. In my opinion, there's still a long way for that one to go. And finally, the Rolex Submariner Bluesy. So this is the solid gold with blue bezel and blue dial. In February, that was sitting at £40,500. Through to March, it actually increased slightly to £42,300, and now in June we see that watch sitting at £42,000. So that's actually similarly to the Datejust 41 Wimbledon dial. That actually went up in value by 3.7%. Overall, what does that mean for the top 5 popular gold pieces from Rolex? It represents an average percentage decrease of around about 8%. So that is of course significantly higher when we weigh that up against the top 5 steel models, significantly higher than the fall in value on average of 5% for those. Is this data absolutely reliable? Well, it's only been 3.5 months, so what I would like to do is look at these figures and to have enough data available month on month for the movements in prices to actually be able to advise you, right, we know that prices are decreasing, but is the rate of decrease in value actually flatlining? There isn't enough data and evidence yet to suggest that that is happening, so I can't make any real advice as to whether the market dip is ending as yet. But all I can say is that this data clearly does suggest that weighing up the gold pieces versus the steel pieces, the most popular ones that Rolex offer, it does show that the gold ones potentially are actually decreasing more in value, probably because they have a further distance to fall than the steel pieces. So for us, the overall takeaway from that is perhaps the general advice of sticking with the classics at the moment is the safest bet, and gold pieces are falling slightly more in terms of percentage value. So to conclude, guys, let's put all of the maths aside and all of that boring data stuff. What are we seeing as dealers? Things are getting better. Things are picking up. Buyers are starting to return. Market confidence is returning to a degree. We're making more sales than we have done over the last 2 or 3 months in the last few weeks. So that's great news. It's positive for the market. It may mean that prices potentially will start to flatline and settle. The particular dealer here in Manchester I spoke to has actually lost £300,000 on selling their stash of green dial Daytonas, which is obviously a massive, colossal amount, but they've sold those now, they've moved on. So what a good thing is potentially that excess supply that initially caused that market shock, that initial market dip in March time, has now been moved on. Hopefully in a few months' time you can join me again on the channel and I can have more data to analyse and really give a conclusion as to whether the decrease or market dip is starting to end and flatten out. Until then, anyway, thanks very much for joining me on the channel. I've been Watch Investor Vinny. Check out beatthewaitlist-watches.com for all the watches that you see on this channel. Thanks for joining me. Take care.